Picture this. You have been watching a setup for 2 days. You did your analysis, you placed your trade, you set your stop loss, and then the market drops straight through your stop. Then it reverses and it goes exactly where you thought it would go, without you. You just sit there, staring at the screen. Your chest is tight, your jaw is clenched, and something inside you says, "The market did that on purpose. They hunted my stop. They took my money. This is not fair." And right there, in that moment of anger and pain, you said everything. Not about the market, about yourself. Because here is what I want you to understand. The market did not attack you. It revealed you. It showed you your fear. It showed you your need to be right. It showed you that somewhere inside you believed you could control something that no one can control. And that is where the real work begins. Not on the chart, inside you. And today I want to talk to you about the deepest truth in trading. The market is a mirror, and what it reflects is you.
Most people look at a chart and see lines. They see patterns. They see numbers. They see green candles and red candles. But let me tell you what I see. I see people. Every single candlestick on that chart is a human decision. It is a feeling. It is a belief. When you see a strong green candle moving up, that is not just buying pressure. That is belief. That is confidence. That is someone saying, "I believe this is going higher. I am willing to bet on it right now." Sometimes that green candle is excitement. Sometimes it is greed. Sometimes it is the fear of missing out, the fear of watching something go up without you. And when you see a long red candle moving down, that is not just selling. That is fear. That is regret. That is someone saying, "I cannot hold this anymore. I have to get out now." It is panic. It is pain. It is the desperate need to stop the bleeding. Every candle on that chart is a psychological event. It is the result of thousands of minds making decisions at the same time, each one carrying their own hopes, their own fears, their own beliefs about what is true. And here is something I have said for many years. The market is simply a reflection of all the beliefs that traders hold about what is true. Think about that. The price moves because people believe it should move, not because of some hidden force, not because of some manipulation you cannot see. It moves because of collective belief. And that belief is always changing, which means the market is always changing, which means the only thing you can ever truly work with is probability, not certainty, never certainty. When you look at a chart, you are looking at the history of human emotion. Fear, greed, hope, regret, all of it is printed on that chart, candlestick by candlestick, bar by bar. Every wick, every body, every gap, all of it is psychology made visible. Once you understand that, you start to see charts differently. You stop looking for certainty, you start looking for probability. And that shift changes everything.
I have spoken with hundreds of traders over the years, and no matter where they come from, no matter what they trade, they all go through the same emotional journey. It starts with hope. You find trading, you read about it, you start to believe this could change your life, and that hope is beautiful, it is real. Then comes excitement. You make your first few trades, maybe you win, and the excitement builds. Then something happens. You hit a run of good trades. Maybe the market is trending perfectly with your strategy, and the excitement turns into euphoria. You feel unstoppable. You feel like you figured it out. And that is where the danger lives, because in that euphoria, you start to believe you can control the outcome. You take bigger trades, you risk more, you stop following your rules, because rules feel like they were made for weaker traders, not for you, not now. Then the market changes, and the losses start, but you are in denial. It's just a pullback, you say. My analysis is right, the market will come back. So you hold, and it keeps going against you. And denial slowly becomes fear, real fear, the kind that sits in your chest, the kind that wakes you up at night. And then panic. You close the trade at the worst possible moment, right before it would have turned. And then comes desperation. You try to get it back. You take revenge trades. You double your position. You break every rule you ever made. And you lose more and more. And eventually, if you survive long enough, you reach acceptance. And acceptance is where everything changes. Acceptance is not giving up. Acceptance is not weakness. Acceptance is understanding the truth about trading. And the truth is this. Every trade has uncertainty. Every single one. You cannot know what will happen next. No one can. And you do not need to know what will happen next to make money. Let me say that again. You do not need to know what will happen next to make money. This is one of the most important ideas I have ever shared, because most traders are trying to be right. They are trying to predict. They are trying to eliminate uncertainty. But you cannot eliminate uncertainty from trading. What you can do is accept it. You can work with it. You can build a system that wins more than it loses over time. And then you execute that system without emotion, without needing every trade to win, without making the outcome mean something about who you are. That is acceptance. And acceptance is the doorway to consistent trading. Let me talk about the two most powerful forces in every trader's life: fear and greed. Everyone talks about them, but very few people truly understand how they work. Fear shows up in many different ways. There's the fear of entering a trade. You have done your analysis, the setup is there, but you cannot press the button. Something holds you back. What if I am wrong? What if this is the one that wipes me out? And you watch the trade move without you. Then there's the fear of losing. You are in a trade. It is moving against you, not by much, but enough to make you uncomfortable. And instead of letting your stop loss do its job, you move it, or you close early, or you freeze, because the pain of the loss feels too real. And then there's the fear of being wrong. This one is deep. This one is about more than money. This one is about identity. If I am wrong about this trade, am I a bad trader? Am I foolish? Did I waste my time? And because that pain is too great, you hold losing trades too long, because closing them means admitting you were wrong. Now let us talk about greed. Greed is not always obvious. It does not always feel like greed. Sometimes it feels like confidence. You are in a winning trade. Your target is close, but you think, it could go further. I'll just hold a little longer. And it reverses, and you give back most of your gains. Or you are in a losing trade, and instead of cutting it, you add more, because you are so sure you are right. That is greed dressed up as conviction. And then there's the classic greed of moving your stop loss. You set a stop, the price gets close, and you say, I'll just give it a little more room. You just made your risk bigger because you couldn't accept being wrong. These forces are natural. They're human. There's nothing wrong with you for feeling them. Every trader feels them. The difference between those who succeed and those who fail is not whether they feel fear and greed. It is whether they act on them automatically. The master trader feels the fear and does not act. The master trader feels the greed and does not act. They observe the emotion, they let it exist, and they execute their plan anyway. This is what I call thinking in probabilities. When you think in probabilities, you are not attached to any single trade. You understand that any single trade can lose, even if your analysis is perfect, even if your setup is textbook. Any one trade can go against you, because every moment in the market is unique. This is so important. Every moment in the market is unique. It has never happened before. It will never happen exactly like this again. The setup might look like the last 20 setups, but it is not the last 20 setups. It is this one right now, and it can go any way. When you truly accept that, fear starts to lose its power over you. because you are no longer trying to control an outcome you cannot control. You are simply executing a process over time with consistency, and that is what creates results. There is a war happening inside every trader, and most traders do not even know it is happening. On one side is the ego. On the other side is discipline, and they want completely different things. The ego wants to be right. It wants to look smart. It wants to predict perfectly. It wants to trade without losses. It wants other people to see it win. The ego will hold a losing trade for weeks rather than admit it was wrong. The ego will overtrade after a loss to prove it can win back what it lost. The ego will ignore a setup because it looks too simple. Surely the market cannot be that obvious, the ego says, and so you miss the trade. Discipline wants something very different. Discipline wants structure. It wants risk control. It wants process. It does not care about being right. It only cares about doing the right thing, over and over again, without hesitation, without needing a reason beyond the rule itself. And here is what most people get wrong. They think consistency in trading comes from finding the perfect strategy. It does not. Consistency comes from mindset. A perfect strategy in the hands of an undisciplined mind will destroy a trading account. A simple strategy in the hands of a disciplined mind will build one, because the strategy is not the problem. You are. And I say that with the deepest respect, because I was the problem once too. I spent years thinking the market was the enemy, that it was conspiring against me, that I just needed one more indicator, one better system, one cleaner entry. And then, one day, I understood. The issue was never out there. The issue was in here. It was in my beliefs. It was in my inability to accept loss as a natural part of trading. When you define yourself by your trades, you will suffer. When a winning trade means you are smart, a losing trade means you are stupid. And your mind will do anything to avoid feeling stupid, including breaking every rule you have ever made. That is what ego does to a trader. It turns every trade into a test of worthiness, and that pressure destroys performance. The solution is not to have no ego. The solution is to understand that your trades are not you. A loss does not mean you are a bad trader. It means this trade did not work. That is all. The moment you can feel that, trading becomes something completely different.
Let me say something that might surprise you. Patience is not passive. Most people think patience means sitting still and doing nothing. But in trading, patience is one of the most active and demanding skills you can develop. Real patience means watching the market constantly and doing nothing. Not because you were lazy, not because you do not see anything, but because what you see does not meet your criteria. It is not your setup. It is not your edge. And so you wait. You wait while others are jumping in. You wait while the market is moving. You wait while part of your brain is screaming that you are missing out. And you wait because you know that overtrading is one of the fastest ways to destroy an account. And why do traders overtrade? It is not because they are reckless. It is because they are uncomfortable. Sitting still feels wrong. Watching the market and not trading feels like laziness, feels like weakness, feels like you are not working hard enough. And so they trade, not because there is a setup, but because trading feels like doing something, and doing something feels better than sitting still. But here's the truth. Some days, the best trade you can make is no trade. Some hours, the best decision is to walk away from the screen. The market will still be there tomorrow, and your edge will come again, if you are patient enough to wait for it. Patience comes from internal stability. It comes from knowing exactly what you are looking for. It comes from trusting your process. When you truly trust your edge, when you truly believe that your system has a positive expectancy over time, you do not feel the need to trade everything you see. You can wait, because you know opportunity will return, and when it does, you will be ready, rested, clear-headed, calm.
That is the trader who executes with precision, not the trader who has been staring at the screen for 8 hours, fighting the market, looking for something that is not there. And now I want to bring everything together, because this is the idea that changed my life, and I believe it will change yours. The market is not your enemy. The market is not your friend. The market is neutral. It has no feelings about you. It does not know your name. It does not care about your trade. It does not move against you on purpose. It simply moves. And whatever you bring to it, it reflects back. If you bring fear to the market will find your fear and show it to you. Every time price approaches your stop, you will feel it, and you will react to it, and that reaction will cost you. Not because the market targeted you, but because your fear made you act in ways that hurt you. If you bring ego to the market will find your ego and show it to you. You will hold losing trades too long. You will take profits too early. You will miss setups because they feel too obvious, not because the market is punishing you, but because your ego made you act in ways that hurt you. The market is simply a mirror, and what it reflects is your beliefs, your fears, your hopes, your expectations, your relationship with uncertainty, your relationship with loss, your relationship with being wrong. And if you want to trade consistently, if you want to experience what I call the zone, you have to work on what the mirror shows you, not the chart, you. And I know that is not what most people want to hear. Most people come to trading looking for a strategy. They want a system that wins 80% of the time. They want an indicator that tells them exactly where to enter and exit. They want certainty in an uncertain environment, and they will keep searching for it for years, moving from system to system, forum to forum, course to course, until one day, if they are lucky, they realize the strategy was never the problem. The mindset was. Let me tell you what it feels like to be in the zone. And I do not mean a lucky streak. I do not mean a few good trades in a row. I mean the real zone, the one that lives in the mind. In the zone, you do not feel fear when you enter a trade. You feel clarity. You see your setup, you execute, without hesitation, without second guessing. In the zone, a losing trade does not shake you. You do not sit and stare at it. You do not replay it over and over. You acknowledge it. You learn what there is to learn, and you move on. In the zone, you are not trying to prove anything. You are not trying to win back yesterday's losses. You are not trying to impress anyone. You are simply executing your edge, trade after trade, without needing any single trade to be the one. In the zone, you think in probabilities naturally. You understand that across the next 20 trades, your edge will play out. Some will win, some will lose, and that is okay, because over time, the math works in your favor. And you do not need to know which specific trades will win. You just need to execute all of them with consistency. In the zone, the market's movements do not control your emotions. Your process does. And when your emotions are not controlled by the market, when a big red candle does not trigger panic inside you, when a sudden spike up does not pull you in recklessly, that is freedom, real freedom. Not the freedom of winning every trade, but the freedom of not being ruled by the outcome. That is what I have spent my whole life trying to help traders find. Not the perfect strategy, not the secret entry, but the internal space to trade from. The mental freedom that comes from truly accepting uncertainty, from truly believing in your edge, from truly separating your worth as a person from the results on your screen. Because trading is not really about money. At its deepest level, trading is about self-mastery. It is about learning to act with discipline in an environment that is constantly trying to provoke you. It is about learning to sit with uncertainty and not flinch. It is about learning that you can be wrong 30% of the time and still build wealth, if your wins are bigger than your losses, if you cut losers without emotion, if you let winners run without ego. These are simple ideas, but they are not easy to live. Not because the math is hard, but because the emotions are loud. And your whole life you have been taught to avoid pain, to seek certainty, to be right. And trading requires the opposite. It requires you to be comfortable with pain, to embrace uncertainty, to be okay with being wrong regularly, and still show up tomorrow, still press the button, still follow the plan. That is the work. Not the indicators, not the news, not the setup. The work is you. And the beautiful thing about this work is that it never really ends. Every time the market shows you something about yourself, you have a choice. React like you always have, or respond differently. Grow, evolve, become the trader who is not shaken by a stop loss, who is not seduced by a lucky streak, who is not broken by a losing week. That trader exists inside you already. You just have to do the work to bring them out. The market will keep providing the mirror. The question is, are you ready to look? I believe you are. That's why you're here. And that's where it all begins.